All right, thank you everyone. We have now started recording this session. My name is Sue Voigt and I want to welcome you to the first of 3 webinars that we will be hosting about various PBS programs that are available and ways you can integrate PBS programming into and PBS learning media and PBS resources into your curriculum and classroom. I do want to go through a few housekeeping items. First off, we'd ask that you please keep your microphone muted throughout the webinar. If you need to ask a question, you can turn it on, ask your question, but then we ask you please turn it off again. You can also put your questions into the chat. We will be monitoring the chat throughout the webinar. I want to thank Ben Smith from IU12 who will be sharing his screen and navigating for us. So you may occasionally hear us say next slide or to turn over to a website. We will be going live on a few websites midway through the webinar. So just be prepared on that. You may want to have another browser window available at that time. This will last about 45 minutes. It is recorded and you will be able to go back and watch that recording or share the recording with your friends, and Ben will be sharing that link for that towards the end of the webinar, and it will also be provided through your local intermediate units. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Debbie Rick from WITF.
Hi everybody, I just wanted to introduce you to Pennsylvania PBS. Probably you're familiar with your local PBS station. Maybe it's one of those that you see at the bottom of that logo, but all across Pennsylvania, the 7 PBS local stations have been working together to create Learning at Home, which is a really vibrant connection to educational and entertaining content that you can use in your classroom and families can use as well. Each of our stations offers unique regional resources, the power of our statewide initiatives, and the national PBS resources. So by working together, we've really been able to be efficient and effective in sharing some of these resources. And your local station, whether it's WITF where I work or WQED in Pittsburgh or any of the other ones, all of them have great resources available to support educators at their station.
And I would like to introduce you to PAIU, the Pennsylvania Association of Intermediate Units. Many of you may be familiar with your local intermediate unit. There are 29 intermediate units across the state, and this is being hosted by 3 of the intermediate units in the south central portion of the state, but your local intermediate unit has been working with your local PBS station to create a joint joint programming for your area. So if you are not familiar with your local intermediate unit, that is where we are. We are all part of PAIU. And as part of that, I'd like to introduce ourselves specifically, and Ben, if you could go to the next slide, who we are.
As I mentioned, I'm Debbie Rick. I am the Director of Education at WITF.
And I'm Sue Voigt. I am an Educational Services Supervisor at Capital Area Intermediate Unit. Next. Yep.
So I just wanted to give you an overview kind of where we're headed today. Maybe some of you were able to join us when we had a webinar very early in COVID, and we were kind of trying to figure out how to be responsive to what needs were in that time. And as we are trying to be proactive moving into the fall, these are some of the resources we think might be helpful. We're going to just very quickly discuss the value of PBS. I don't know that that is a terribly hard sell to anyone. I think all of us have probably interacted with PBS in some way. So we'll talk about that. We're going to speak a little to the age groups supported by content, where to find the content both nationally and on your local station's website. And then Sue will discuss, sort of walk you through practical classroom applications, because these resources are great, but if you don't know what to do with them, they're just not that super. We want to make sure that that all blends together for you. And then as we wrap up today, we're going to talk about ways you can support families with content, no matter your classroom setting, whether you're going to be face-to-face or a hybrid model, or you're totally virtual, or some sort of blending. We don't even know yet. As we walk through this together, we want to discuss how you can utilize this material to support families. So when we think about PBS, again, I don't know that it's a terribly hard sell. It is a nationally acclaimed resource, fully research-based. We'll just briefly touch on a little bit of that today. All you would need to Google, you could just Google PBS research. There is quite a substantial, both independent and the Corporation of Public Broadcasting research to support what we do. And perhaps one of the most important things is the perception that families have that PBS is a trusted family resource. And from an educator perspective, it supplements and enhances everything that we're doing in the classroom. And so when we're dealing with issues of access, whether in person, where folks don't have access to the internet, on-air resources become really, really vital to being able to deliver some of this content to students and families. This is a cute, pretty graphic that talks about the fact that nationally, about 77% of children aged 2 to 11 watch PBS programming regularly. It's the #1 educational brand, and that's based on family feelings, family perceptions. Research, again, as I said, around PBS yields statistically significant gains, whether we're talking about language or math. Specific programs do address those issues. And what I appreciate, and why it's such a nice thing for me as an educator and moving to public media, is that the model of PBS is really unique, that the content, the educational content, is central. It's the key piece. And then the producers and the developers work on how to make that engaging and entertaining and fun, versus another model that would look, can we pull some educational content out of this funny, fun show? And so the fact that the content is the king, right? The content is the driver. It makes it a really easy bridge to what is happening inside the classroom. I think sometimes what is interesting is I'll hear educators feel comfortable with PBS, but just for our youngest learners. We have this perception, and we will talk extensively about Pbs Kids, and for I think especially in the setting that we're in right now, where we're trying to figure out how to bridge gaps for students, it's really valuable for very young children. But it's not just for our youngest learners. PBS really does address all content areas. We are going to talk about Pbs Kids, but our full range of programming, and we will talk about how that's going to be laid out moving into the fall in a kind of new, unique way. We'll talk about that towards the end, but ways to reach older students, middle school students, high school students with the whole palette of resources, from Nova to Nature. All of those resources come into play and are helpful to you as an educator to support. Pbs Kids itself does a really good job at sort of translating the program to the content and being able to just to show you so clearly how programs fall into our content areas. A lot of stations, a lot of your individual stations will have their programming aligned in this way, but this is sort of the national picture of PBS's on-air and digital-only resources. So when you're looking to find content, related to on-air resources, you can start with your local PBS station. All of us on our station web pages will talk about how to navigate to the on-air stations, what actual channel they will fall, how to watch online if you have that capability, what is actually airing and what time that is airing. And again, I will talk about that unique across station educational block of programming, and we'll talk about that a little towards the end. We don't need to navigate to these resources on this slide because Sue is about to do it for you, but the PBS Kids website does demonstrate and show all of the PBS programs that are for younger viewers, and has a wealth of information from games to apps to actual programs that you can utilize if you have digital access. And then there are a whole host of other resources that Sue is about to introduce you to. So Sue, do you want to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to, before we go to the next slide and then navigate, just wanted to highlight a few items. One thing that is just to note, every time you go to PBS Kids, the background changes colors. So the way you navigate to it and what we see today and what your screen is might be slightly different color on the background, but it's still the same site.
We're trying to be fun, Sue. We're trying to
Yeah.
be fun.
Um, and then the other thing, in the PBS education site, there are 4 major sections within there. On next week, Dr. Lauren Beal from Lancaster Lebanon IU 13 will be doing a deep dive into one of those sections called PBS Learning Media. We will be touching base into the section called Pbs Teachers Lounge, which is exactly what you would expect it to be, a place where some of the Teachers Lounge, where you would get quick little tips and share short little articles with fellow teachers. And that is one thing that we will be looking at as well today. So if you want to click to the next slide, Ben, before we go out to the site. So in this slide, if you've downloaded it, you'll be able to also get the notes that I have below. But we are going to be going to a couple of these sites as an example. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be digging down into these sites and taking a concept that is applicable and can be adapted to many different grade levels, and then looking at some of the PBS resources on how, and giving you some ideas on how you could potentially use those in your classroom. The ideas that I am doing, when I say your classroom, it doesn't necessarily need to be a face-to-face. It could be an in-person, it could be a hybrid model where you perhaps assign students to watch a program, whether it's on PBS Kids or on PBS Learning Media, or a show that is being aired that day. You can make it as a flipped classroom. You can use it as hybrid. So these are all of some of the different examples you can use when you are using these resources. So the concept we're going to use and we're going to explore in multiple elementary, middle, and high school is the concept of animals. And specifically, I'm going to use that as an example. And the animals are brown and black bears of North America. Grizzly bears, brown bears, black bears, those kinds of things with different pieces. So at this point, we're going to pop out to the PBS Kids site. And okay, come on, there it is. All right, so is everybody now seeing my green screen with the things? Thank you, Ben. Oh, and you know what? I do need to stop that share because I forgot to click so that we can hear the sound when I show this clip. We'll do it again. Before I go in, I wanted to show you a few items on this screen. The first thing and a tip to do when you go to any PBS site, and this is the same no matter whether you're in PBS Kids, PBS Learning Media, PBS Newsletters, Education, in the upper right-hand corner, you will see the logo for what the computer thinks is your local TV station. Sometimes, especially if you live between two stations or your computer is not detecting your location, it will have the last place you were. It's very easy. I would recommend that you go up and you change this to the local station that is where you are as the first thing that you would want to do. The second thing that you can show as a teacher is looking at the TV times. And if you click on the TV times, you will see a grid similar to what you would see on your guide on your TV with all of the different stations and the times, and you can dig in. There will be other ways you can get schedules and different pieces. With WITF, we have 4 different broadcast channels that they can show, and you can see what is being shown on each of the broadcast channels at any given time. Oh, come on. Go back. As you can see, the background does change color each time we go in. So when you are in this site, one of the things that is kind of tricky to get used to at first is the wheel at the bottom. In order to get the wheel to turn to all of the PBS Kids stations, you have to click one of the arrows going on one of the sides. And to get the arrow, you have to click in the center piece. So we're going to look at a show with Molly of Denali. And in all of the shows, all of the PBS Kids shows and broadcast shows have some version of these components within them. They have a game, a videos, and an activity. Some of them also have podcasts and additional pieces and connections. One of the things that you also see is across the top, you will see a banner. When you're in the main website, there are different tips. For each of the shows, there are tips that are parent viewing sites or activities that you could have. A parent can do them with their child, or you can use those as an educator and snag those. They are related to the show. I'm going to pop into videos, and I did find that this helped if I enlarged it just a little bit for you. When you're in the videos section, you'll look and you can see episodes or clips and different pieces. This is great if your kids are not able to view a show when it is broadcast through your local PBS station. If it happens to be at a time that they are traveling to pick a sibling up at school, or it just didn't work, or they just forgot. So most of the episodes are shown and are available. You can also just get clips, and I'm going to grab a clip. And we're just
This summer, something new is coming to PBS Kids. Molly of Denali. Let's go! She's Molly.
I want to grab a clip, and in Molly of Denali, these little clips are roughly 2 minutes, and I'm going to show one of these clips right now.
Hey everyone, Molly here to answer your questions about life in Alaska. Keon in Louisiana asks, how can I learn more about animals in Alaska? My friends can show you.
Welcome, Molly! Today we're at the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center.
The AWCC takes care of orphaned and injured animals.
My friend Taylor works here and she's showing us all the different animals.
We brought this book so we can learn even more about each animal.
That is our gray wolf.
We're looking for a wolf. We're looking through the index and seeing what page the animals are on. If you look through the index, it is in alphabetical order, so it will help you find the animal and what page they're on quicker. W. Wolves, page 210. Lone wolves are rare. Most hunt in packs of half dozen or more.
How many wolves are there?
A Dauchik, Marga, Punar, and Starman. There are 4 wolves. Look over there. Porcupine, 166, over here. They do indeed have quills. About 30,000 cover head, back, and tail. We met a porcupine named Snickers, and we got to feed it peanuts.
My favorite thing that we saw today was the porcupine.
How old is Snickers?
Snickers is 15 years old. This one is Cat and Eye.
My favorite animal was the Sitka black-tailed deer because they were really soft.
Oh, so cute! You got Molly!
Masi Chu, thanks for asking and see you next time.
And so as an educator, if you are using this, you don't have to have it happen during the classroom. If you have a hybrid, you can assign watching one of these clips as homework. And all of these clips are clips that at one point are on a full episode of the show that it is. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this idea of animals and connecting it to a clip. They were looking at a book and looking at different pieces. So now we're going to go into games. And in some of the PBS shows call it games and activities. Some of them combine the two together and call it just one thing, such as games. Molly of Denali does combine activities and games into one piece. We're going to go into Alaskan Adventure. So the students have just watched this, whether it's at home or where they are going. And so now we're going to do an Alaskan Adventure and with looking at a book.
Alaskan Adventure. Hey everyone! I've been getting lots of questions from my vlog viewers about all the cool animals that live in Alaska. So Nina and Mom are taking me to do some research.
We'll take photos of the animals and make notes about what we see.
Then add them all to my notebook. Afterwards, I'll answer viewers' animal questions in my vlog. Choose a place to go and an animal to find. Tap the arrows to see more places and animals. Marsh, river.
So on this site,
Bears at the river.
we're going to look at bears at the river.
Let's photograph bears for our notebook. Molly, did you know that bears look for salmon in rivers? They are also excellent swimmers.
We need a photo of a bear. Nice photo. You can take more or tap the arrow to add a photo to the notebook.
So we only have one photo. I've been practicing to make sure I
Great
got
photo.
it. Right.
Choose a photo to match this caption. You picked a photo for the caption. Captions give information about their matching photos. Bears look in rivers for salmon to eat.
So if you're
done, tap the check mark.
If you have been doing any kind of science or involved in science notebooking and looking at science notebooking, one of the things in science notebooks is they're not the lab reports that we used to do when we were kids. In science notebooking, you're taking any kind of activity or having the students write whatever they feel is most important about the lesson and giving them an opportunity to do pictures or text or something that would help them remember about that lesson. And so I'm looking at, as a teacher, bears look for river for salmon to eat.
Can you draw a picture to match this caption? Bears look in rivers for salmon to eat. Use the colors to draw the picture. If you want to trace the photo you took, use the slider to help you. You can undo if you make a mistake.
And so you can have your students draw a picture.
Did you know in the Tlingit language the word for brown bear is hoots?
Okay, and so I have my picture just like you would in a notebook. This can be a digital notebook. If you're doing this with on-air programming, this could even be something you assign to students to do. It's with looking at this and having them do that in a grab-and-go bag, or if you have a notebook, the students could pick an animal, watch a clip, and then draw something in their notebook as an assignment to follow up and keep it into their science notebooks.
Are you done? Tap the check mark or tap your drawing to start over. A cut A. All done. Wow, we collected some really cool information. Now I can answer viewers' questions about bears in my vlog. Here's my notebook. Here's what we learned about bears. Choose a place to go and an animal to find. Tap the
And so that's just one example of how you can then connect, whether it's digital online with a science notebook, an offline notebook, or some other type of offline activity to make what the students are viewing a little bit more interactive. Now I'm going to go to another site, and let me see if I can get that. And we're going to take the same concept of animals and we're going to go to the Teachers Lounge and look at something in an ELA activity, and also perhaps a little bit more middle school level. So within the PBS Teachers Lounge, one of the pieces that I really like to go is you can look at all of the help, the tech tools, or just if you're looking for something, just use the search bar. And it is a pretty good search bar, I will say that. So I'm going to type animals. And you'll see all of the activities and all of the posts. These are all very short blog posts from other educators sharing ideas about PBS resources and how to use them. So you can go into this Teachers Lounge and pick anything you want. The one that I like here is this one from July 2017 as an English teacher in Alaska. So this is an English teacher and connecting an English resources to the culture. And what she looks at are different resources about the Alaskan culture and animals, and looking at how the Alaskan culture views the animals. A variety of different books in variety of ways for teens that you can use in your classroom, and it's a great suggestions of connecting it now to our concept of animals into the classroom using any typical English language arts we have. Great resource there. And you can now also connect this. How do various cultures look at animals, and particularly animals such as a bear? Does the culture view the bear as a nuisance, or is it a spirit animal? So looking at those different pieces with it. And of course, they always have a connection at some point with another PBS media. And the last one I want to show, and this one is a very quick one, is the nature site. If you're looking at a high school, now there are a number of videos, and if you look at in the nature site, it is broken down into your animals. So looking at the mammals, and I want to go into the bears. This one's looking at the brown bears. And these are collections about different animals and different bears. And one of the things thinking about this now, if you look at these, they're a mixture of clips. Nature is just one of the many programs on PBS. You can look at both bears and conservation, and so you can now connect it to a larger conservation effort and start to think about how do humans change the behaviors of bears. There are clips, they're about using bears. If any of you have follow any of the Explorer websites that from the Annenberg Foundation, they have live cameras. One of the things that they have talked about is there have been some bridges that have been made permanent in Katmai National Park, which is one of the places that is listed on the map and where they did filming. And how has that affected the bears? Here in Central PA, there have been bear sightings in a town near where I live, in Linglestown. Bears have been wandering through their backyard. My neighbor even saw one walking through her backyard in a suburb of Harrisburg. So what has happened, and how does how does human behavior change the behaviors of bears, and how do we look at bears in society? So you can have students create and do projects about conservation and human interaction. So those are some ideas of how to take different pieces into the session or into your classroom, and then assign these videos, assign these research pieces. So I'm going to stop sharing and ask that Ben puts the PowerPoint back up, because I just wanted to mention a couple other examples that I had. And so I've put two of the other PBS station or shows that are on there that would be great for pulling in high school. Nova, the one that I have clicked there, happens to be The Making of North America, and it deals with a lot of geology. And the American Experience is great in looking at social studies. Right now, they're doing a special on the women's suffrage movement, and have video clips and photo clips that could be used for essays, for creating projects, and understanding even how you can connect the women's suffrage movement to the civil rights movement. So I know we have a couple tips that we want to go through, but at some point we also want to take, and if we have some time at the end of the webinar, what we'll do is, after we go through the last few things we have, if you would like to throw out an idea, Debbie or I will give you some ideas of some PBS media to connect. So Ben, if you want to go to the next slide with the tips. So just a couple quick tips to remember to do when you're in any of the sites, and it doesn't matter what site you're in. One of the things that should do like right away is change the PBS station in the upper right to match your local station. That will also help you, in addition to get the local TV times, you may also get some content that is geared to what your area. The next one is PBS Kids. Watch the banner across the top for links to additional activities. I've been seeing that change all of the times. If a student missed the on-air broadcast, almost every clip and show is on the PBS Kids and PBS Learning Media sites. Most of the middle school and high school videos and activities can be exported to Google Classroom. And your homework for next week is to use the standards tab or to sign up for a PBS Learning Media account. If you have a PBS Learning Media account, you now have access to the PA standards. If you don't have an account, you will only be able to look at the national standards. But if you sign up for a free PBS Learning Media account by next week, when Dr. Lauren Beal goes into the deep dive, you might be able to connect it directly to your standards. And thank you, Ben, for putting the tiny URL in. I was going to do that when Debbie goes on the next slide.
Sorry. One thing Sue and I talked about was the challenge of family engagement in the times that we are in. How to be able to share these resources with families, how perhaps to find content to share around a whole wide range of issues that families might be sorting out and dealing with. I will share that a lot of individual stations have specific newsletters that you can sign up for. PBS nationally, PBS Kids nationally has a wonderful Monday through Friday email that drops in, that you can just have dropped into your email with activities and connections, all themed around a topic. So those are great. And to share with families, the PBS Parents site provides lots of articles, lots of activities for families to do at home. Each of our stations has a wide variety of connections. If you go to your station name and navigate to their activities and support resources, there's a lot available there. And then we want to tell you some really exciting news. So starting September 7th, each of the 7 PBS stations in our state will be broadcasting the same daily educational content from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And that content, that total of 20 hours per week, spans the kindergarten through 12th grade age group. We'll start in the 11 o'clock hour with more younger elementary, moving into older elementary, and then middle school and high school. That's been an evolution we've been working on, and we're so excited to be able to offer that across the state. Wherever you live, those programs will be available during that time period. There is obviously a lot of other programs available, but those specific programs will be targeting to address specific content goals. We're also moving into this concept of helping to make those programs work better, work more effectively for families, and encourage co-viewing and discussion at home. So while grown-ups are watching with their child, how do we encourage this kind of dialogue that we would like to see? So Ben, if you want to flip to the next slide. What we're looking at doing during that block is dropping in some questions that, I remember as a first-year teacher trying to prompt myself to ask really good questions, open-ended questions. And so thinking about how we can prompt grown-ups to view programs in a way that helps them to draw conclusions for their, to connect those things for their students, for their children. So if we want to work on having children think about inferences, and if that is a skill we want to reinforce across the state, then can we prompt families to engage with the programming in that way, and then direct them to either individual stations or statewide how to find out more information. We're developing a piece for the website that will talk about a variety of co-viewing questions if you're sitting with your child, and then what happens if you weren't able to, if you were yourself on a Zoom call while your child was engaged in a program. How do you go back and say, what was your favorite part, and did you like it, and what did you learn, and all sorts of questions to engage students. I keep saying students, but for those grown-ups, they're their children. So to engage their children in really good content conversation around what they're seeing on their TV or screen. Ben, you can flip. Okay, so that is a sweeping quick introduction to what is available on air. And again, there is layers to those resources. You have individual station resources, statewide resources, and the national PBS volume of things available for you to support you in what you're doing, whether you are in a classroom, whether you are working virtually, or whether you are crafting a hybrid model. We know that the work ahead for this school year is challenging, and we are excited to be able to offer the supports that we can to what you're doing in the classroom. I will say, I said this in all the webinars we did earlier on in COVID, if you as a teacher really have a need, if you're thinking, you know what would be great if we had this thing, share that, email your PBS station, share it back to your IU, because often those are ideas, those ideas that you have are things that other teachers are thinking about and other teachers are needing, and we want to be able to support those in the best ways that we can all across the state.
And if you have not already connected with your local station, whether it's WITF or any of the PBS stations around Pennsylvania, reach out to, and you're not sure who to go to, reach out to either Debbie or I, or reach out to your local intermediate unit, because every intermediate unit is connected to a local PBS station, and we are collaborating on a weekly or bi-weekly basis with our local stations. With that, I did see a question in the chat. It said the videos will work with Google Classroom, but will it work with Schoology? And thank you, Ben, because I was just going to toss this to you. That he said you can always share the link for any LMS. However, you should be able to grab the embedded code. And your instructional, if you don't know how to do that, I know Ben will be able to do that, and all of your IUs have instructional tech people who can also help you with that as well.
I would just quickly add that most of those videos have a share link, and when you click on that share link, you'll be able to get either the link that you might need or the embed code, and then those pieces can be dropped right into your LMS, and they should work seamlessly. But as Sue just said, just reach out to your local IU Ed Tech division, and they should be able to help you as well.
And there is a reason that Debbie and I had Ben there with us today to help us with his tech questions.
I will also say that I saw a number of the other station education folks on this webinar. If any of you want to drop your email into the chat to share with folks who might be from your region, please feel free to do so. And again, I'm happy to make that connection. If you have my email here, if you aren't sure who else to reach out to, we're happy to connect you.
And Debbie and I will also stay on the webinar a little bit, that if there's anybody who has a specific content question, we'll try to give you one or two ideas and point you to a few program ideas that you might want to use, similar to what I did with the bears.
And I will also just tease out that next week's webinar regarding learning media, if you aren't aware of that resource, or if you're minimally aware, that's going to be super helpful to help you make these connections. The following week on the 27th, we'll be discussing how PBS can connect you and support your students in social and emotional learning. So that's the three webinars that we're featuring in and going to support in this way.
And I see a question coming from Carolyn, and I do apologize, and thank you for reminding us, Carolyn. We did mention that we are about sharing this webinar, and we're going to turn to Ben again, our tech guru, to let us know how it is going to be shared.
Following this, we'll be uploading to YouTube, and then we will be posting in a number of locations and pushing it back out, certainly to the email list, but then we'll be making it widely available through our PAIU contacts.
Great. Okay, so I'm seeing Pat Swick for 8th grade American history from early government to Civil War. Any ideas? First one that pops into mind are Ken Burns's work with all of the American history, looking at anything in the American experience in the PBS Learning Media site. That would be one that pops into my mind right away. I still have the PBS Teachers Lounge up, and I'm actually going to just share my screen again real quick. I have not looked.
As you're doing that, I will share that there was and I feel like I can find that link. There was a webinar that PBS provided on using Ken Burn documentaries because pretty early on in COVID, Ken Burn, if you're not familiar with Ken Burns, his documentaries are often very long, so you might want to pull clips from those, but they are incredibly well-researched, very deep, very, very useful educationally, and he made all of them available in a collection on Learning Media. And there's the Roosevelts, there's like quite a wide variety of very well-researched, very watchable and interesting documentaries available from him.
And when I went to Teachers
Thank you.
Lounge,
People are sharing contacts for that.
yeah, so using the Ken Burns in your classroom came up in the Teachers Lounge when I did a search on, I just did a search in the Teachers Lounge under American history. And these are all of the activities and articles that have been written by other teachers on how to use some of the different resources in the PBS media, different pieces, and you could do 9 more posts. So that was just another one. Quickly looked, teaching the Civil War through a new lens. There's some more about the Vietnam War. So there's one. Obviously not as high level as, or a little higher level than what you would need, Pat, at an 8th grade level, but you could use some online resources to help students prepare for the AP. There might be some items in there that you would be able to use.
And I will say too, the beauty of the PBS connections is that they're vetted. That you're not grabbing something that you've found perhaps on YouTube that may have a commercial pop up in the middle, or may have who knows what pop up in the middle. That your source is really well researched and really is protected because of the lack of advertising that could drop into that. It's a nicer resource for the classroom for sure.
I'm seeing another question from Rebecca. How accessible are these learning objects for students and educators who need to use adaptive technology? I'm going to kick that one over to Debbie, or if there are any of our other PBS education colleagues who are on the line who would like to speak for this, or Ben, if you know anything.
Yeah, I'm not personally, I'm not sure about the full range of adaptive technology. I know that PBS nationally works really hard on those issues. So in terms of an actual example, I might have to do some looking for you, but I can certainly do that and connect back to you.
And I do know that all of the videos are closed captioned, which Ben is showing right now. So thank you, Ben.
It's very helpful, that piece. And often you're able, and this isn't adaptive technology necessarily, but often you're able to see those captions in Spanish too.
Yeah, and I do know even some of those, there was one episode with Molly of Denali that I was watching where the student had the gentleman who was being interviewed about his culture and the drumming as part of his culture had a little bit heavier accent, and that was closed captioned as well. And Molly of Denali uses a lot of native language, and I do know some of the other shows that include, if they use a vocabulary word, they will put that word on the screen because it may be a word that a child may not know, and maybe unfamiliar with. So yes, the next 2 sessions will be recorded as well. So thank you for that. This really ends our session, but like we said, so we can stop the recording. But if there's anybody else who has other questions and wants to hang out and get some other ideas, we'll be glad to do that.
I would just quickly add, Sue, that if you know that you can't attend one of the next 2 webinars, but you want access to it, please register, even though you won't be attending. And then when the meeting is done, the archive will be emailed out to that group.
That's smart.
So we just want to thank everybody for coming out. That concludes the webinar for you. And if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Debbie and Sue for more information. Thanks, everyone.